Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Global Party Healing from the Inside Out. And although I am here in Canada on Prince Edward Island on June 20th, Verity Mansfield is already in the future on June 21st.
I am.
But yet it's all happening now, wherever you are in the world. And we're actually going to be talking about the relationship revolution. And I actually think that this is a perfect example of sometimes when you're in a relationship, Verity, some people are in the past and others are in the future, and very few are in the now.
The now, yeah. That's it. Interview done. Problem solved.
Well, you know, we could just, I did ask you about a favorite song that you had. And did you want to tell me why you picked Glorious?
Oh my goodness. I do. It's such a, I just feel like, first of all, I love Macklemore, and I just always feel like the lyrics are so much, it's such a deeper meaning to the lyrics and some of the stuff that we hear on the radio these days. But I think it's just that feeling of, you know, that glorious, and every single day that you get up, it's another chance, you know, of trying to hit those goals again, of trying to create that magic again. It's like that whole brand new day feeling. And it just lives, like it just completely lights me up whenever I hear that song. And that feeling, I think that really deep belief in oneself that anything is possible. And, you know, especially when we trust ourselves and we're willing to meet ourselves at a really, really deep level and really stop seeking the validation from the outside world, but seeking the validation from within. And so, yeah, that song just makes me feel, you know, like anything's possible, and, you know, the world's kind of cheering you on as you know, go on your way and hit those goals.
Yeah, I also love the video about it too. Like, you know, when she's throwing the eggs at the door, I was like, yeah, go for it. And we're talking about an older woman on a walker here. Okay, so you got to watch the video. Okay,
yeah,
it really
gorgeous.
It is
so
gorgeous. It is. So the link is in our comments here, so you can go ahead and play it and get the full effect here. Because I really feel like there's a lot of juice to be expressed here. We're extracting that, you know, carrot and squishing out the orange. You know, the pulp can stay, and we're getting right to the vibrancy of what life is. It's relationships, isn't it?
It really is. And I think that's something that's just never lost on me. And just the other day, I was talking to one of my clients, and they were just saying, they were just telling me how much their relationship had completely turned around. And we're talking about in a matter of like 3 weeks. And she just couldn't thank me enough for the, I guess, the space for her to do the work in, because she's the one doing the work. And it was just, I don't know, there's moments where you actually really get to sit and watch someone's love story evolve and feel like you've got your own kind of like, you know, VIP seat in some Hollywood movie, some big romantic movie that's going on in front of you, and just really sort of, you know, when people are turning that boat around, and when their relationships coming back into that vibrancy and the passion starting to flow again. And you just, I don't know, it's just never lost on me how important our relationships are, and everything is relational. And, you know, when our relationships aren't working for us, it can feel like every part of our life is falling apart. You know, it can affect our health, it can affect our performance at work, it can affect our ability to show up as parents. It can completely not only take over our whole entire mindset. And when a relationship is literally lighting up your soul, it's you know, it's glorious.
And hence song.
It's like nothing can stop you. And so, yeah, I just think it's so beautiful. And I think it's also really important because I think as human beings, we're all trying to seek that place where we feel that sense of belonging, where we feel like we're really witnessed and we're really seen by someone, like our life means something to not just ourselves, but to somebody else. And I think that feeling of being witnessed, that feeling of belonging, the feeling of unconditional love, like, you know, we might make massive mistakes, but we're that person's still there cheering us on, reflecting back our beauty to us when we're not seeing it. I just don't think there's anything more magical than that. I don't think there's anything more sort of important and more spiritual than having that feeling of just being seen and witnessed and honored, regardless of who we are, being 100%, you know, accepted and loved by, you know, another person, and then reflecting that back for ourselves.
Is it, because I know what you shared with me, so is it the sense that we do need somebody to witness that in us, or do we need to be able to receive it because it just really is?
I think it's one of those things where our relationships show up as mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people can see my hands. So it's one of those things, like, if we can't see, and sometimes we get so lost, especially in our ego. And so when we lose that side of, you know,
nobody does that, do they?
No. But that other person can reflect our beauty back to us in so many different ways, and even, you know, subconsciously. And it's just like when we have conflict in a relationship, and we can blame the other person for bringing the conflict in. But what it really is just this beautiful kind of, you know, red flag of saying, hey, there's something here you actually need to work on. And so we do create these very intimate relationships where our fears can, you know, get sort of triggered, for lack of a better word. And, you know, where our stuff rises up and we think it's the other person, and we'll blame the other person and shame the other person and guilt the other person. But they're really just a mirror for us to be able to see, like, what's going on for ourselves and where we can meet ourselves at a deeper level. So it can happen in terms of having conflict in a relationship, or it can happen in the other way, where someone's just not themselves, they're not rising, they're not seeing themselves, and that person can reflect all that beauty back to that person, so they can see it back in themselves and be like, okay, I've got this, and that they can see that beauty. And I think that's just a beautiful thing about relationships. It's just, they're so powerful when they're resourceful, when we see them for what they are, and when we stop seeing them as something that, like so many people turn to relationships and we're like, well, what am I getting out of this? And, you know, I'm only going to invest what I'm getting out, compared to into a relationship and being like, right, what can I give? Like, what can I learn about myself here? And it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows every single day of our lives. Some days it's going to be really horrible, and maybe for a year it could be really horrible. But it's really about, you know, being able to, I guess, stay that course with someone and keep digging in to ourselves at a deeper level, so we can unearth all the beauty and bring that beauty into a relational space. So we often forget that there's three parts to a relationship. There's you, there's the other person, and then there's this relational space in between. And we demand everything from this relational space, but it's not a living person that can give you anything. Right. You have to create this. And consciously. Well,
okay, so one of the things that I hear, you know, and so I want you to address this, is that somebody's in a situation where it's an abusive situation, right? Like they're being disrespected, you know, just like what's going on here with the racism, right? You're being disrespected, you're being treated improperly. Are you supposed to be looking at that in the space of, what are you teaching me? Because I know I did that for a lot of years. It kept going, okay, this is my opportunity. What do I need to learn? This is my opportunity. And my opportunity was to say enough. That's like, no more. Just like what's kind of going on, like, no more. Is that okay?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that's the whole point, right? It's like, how much are we loving ourselves? So we demand all this love from the other person, but it should be ourselves who is creating that love and creating that space of love for ourselves. And so it's one of those things, and I've been in abusive relationships, and the lesson was to get the hell out, to go love myself more than loving a toxic relationship.
Right.
I didn't love myself enough. And that person was a perfect mirror to tell me I'm not loving myself.
Right.
And he wasn't going to love me either. I
No
wasn't
matter
respecting myself. He wasn't respecting me either. And I wasn't honoring myself by being there. And wow, he wasn't honoring me either. And I know we're laughing about this, but when you're in it, it's soul destroying, absolutely soul destroying. So I don't mean to make light of it. Here is a beautiful way of just going, yeah, you know, yeah, I hear that kind of thing.
No, and I feel it's very valid to realize that we can laugh about it now, you know, because we have addressed it and healed it. When each of us were in the situation, you know, we were feeling all kinds of emotions and victimized and, you know, crying and, you know, whichever, and angry and probably, I don't know, I had, you know, disease related to the situation, you know, because there's so much inner turmoil within. And so that is the opposite side for those that were thinking, well, I'm in that situation. Well, the opposite side is when you do your work, you end up laughing about, like I now say that was the greatest gift that I had. Yeah. And I do sometimes feel like my ex was actually sitting there going, oh my God, when is she going to learn? Like, how brutal do I have to be? You know, like, it's like, I thought I learned to sign up for this for a little bit, but she's such a slow learner. You know, I was like, I can handle this. I'm the spiritual optimist. I can do it. You know?
I can do this. And I got you angels. I got you angels sitting up there just going, oh my God. Okay, you know, she wanted to learn how to love herself. I've given her this opportunity. Like, what else do I have to do? And, you know, that's always one of the things I remembered from growing up. And I didn't grow up in a very loving family at all. And I had a lot of issues with my mom and trying to reconcile that. And I think it was through, oh my goodness, there's a book like Conversations with God or something like that. And there's a story about, you know, I guess it's that whole thing, like, you know, me being able to say to my mother, and not as my mother, but as another being that agreed to come down and have this contract with me of saying, okay, I want to learn everything about self-love. And this other person put their hand up and said, well, I'll do it. I'll teach you about self-love. Oh, it's going to be really hard. Are you sure you're going to be able to do this? And the other person saying, I'm going to love you. I love you so much. I want to do this the best way possible. I want to do the best job possible of teaching you how to love yourself. And sometimes in life, it's not what we want it to be. And, you know, the best way for me to have learned to love myself in this lifetime was to never feel loved by anyone, to grow up wondering who was going to love me. And so when there is no one there to catch you, you have to rely on your own 2 feet. There's no other option. And it just, I guess for me, that was how I found my own 2 feet, and how I started to learn to love myself, and how I started to see my relationships didn't exist to make me happy. They existed to help me grow, to help me learn. And sometimes that learning can happen so joyously. And other times when we're not listening to ourselves, when we're not tuned into ourselves, it's a really painful lesson.
Yeah. And so I'd like to just honor everybody that's feeling that sadness that they're in a relationship right now, or frustration, you know, that you want something different, that you really do want to feel loved. And what would be the first steps for somebody that is recognizing, like, you know they have to do something different, but they might not have the courage, or they're, you know, they're at that point, you know, that point, right? They know there's something that needs to shift.
There should be something more, but what is it?
Yeah, can it be a little easier than I think it's going to be?
It can be easy. It can really be easy. and this is something I do with all of my clients. It's the very first thing we do, and it is we go truth hunting, basically, and we really dig deep into their values and their rules, and into what I talk about, breaking the good girl rules. And so we grew up with all this messaging about who we should be, especially as women. And when we start to sort of deconstruct those rules, and there's some really crazy rules that we've learned about being a good girl,
Right.
and a good wife, and a perfect wife, and a perfect mother, and a perfect daughter. And so when we deconstruct that, and we actually really start to learn about what it is that we want, what the absolute, we do the 5 highest values of you, the 5 things you crave more at a soul level more than anything else in this world. And, you know, they might be things like connection or adventure or fun or integrity or leadership. Like they're big kind of ticket items, and they're all very different for different people and mean different things for different people. And so the women that I work with, as they dig into this stuff, and then as we look at the unwanted states, the things that they never, ever want to experience again, you should see all of the incredible aha moments. You should see the women with their heads in their hands just going, oh my God, I totally understand why and where I am. It totally makes sense. I've been living by all of these other rules, and I've never once done anything for myself. I've never once gone for this stuff. And it's not tangible stuff like, well, I want a house, and I want a good car, and I want the white picket fence, and I want a really lovely husband. It's not that stuff. This is deep, deep work at a soul level of what the soul is craving for. And I don't think as women we've ever been taught to ask ourselves, what do we want at our deepest level? We do everything for everybody else. We put ourselves last. We don't speak up. We don't rock boats. We put our husbands first and their needs first. We make their lunches and their sandwiches and their dinners, or, you know, worry about keeping the house clean, or worrying about getting the kids sorted. And there's so many exhausted women that have never asked themselves, well, hang on, what do I actually want?
Right.
So that is always the first step. And it is so funny when women create their own rules. And whenever I read them, I get goosebumps, and I get this full-on feeling. I get this whole sense of the person that's in front of me when they've done this work just by reading their rules about who they are and what they want. And it's incredible to watch, I guess, these women as well kind of start navigating things, because we'll work for 8 weeks together. So as they've done these rules and they're navigating the next couple of weeks with me, that something will be happening, like, oh, I don't know why this happened again. I'm like, read your rules. And I'll go through the rules and I'll be like, oh my God, I didn't do that. I have not done that either. And I've not been doing that. And I'm like, go play by your rules.
Go
these are your rules.
Right. Well, I mean, that has got to be extremely freeing. Right? When you eliminate the rules someone else gave you, right? Essentially, the ones that you've adapted from whether your ancestors, your own parents, society, and said, okay, that game didn't work for me. I'm playing this game, you know, that game of life. Remember that? Did you play that board game? And did they have that board game in Australia, the game of life, where
I think they did, but I never played it.
Yeah, no, I always wanted to be a doctor because it made so much money. Okay, you know, that was it. It was like, oh, I'm a teacher. That's no good. Let's go back again. I got to be a doctor. Okay. Because that was my game of rule. My rule is you got to make a lot of money. You can be unhappy and miserable, but as long as you're making a lot of money, okay. So
I don't know why I'm not happy.
Changing the rules became no, happy is important. But so that's got to be like, that's freedom, which is interesting. I always find when I do a global party is that really, I always say it's consciousness, source consciousness event, because as much as I put it out there, the people that actually get the interviews booked, and there's already a theme that's happened, and I didn't pick the theme. Like, to me, that's like, I'm the stand to say that everything's happening perfectly, and then whatever the message is, and it's really so far about relationships and healing and dealing with what each of us wants, right? And how we're relating to what's going on. And in that experience, most definitely there could be that idea that we're all supposed to be a certain way, but ultimately we're all individuals and we're all having the own rules of our own game, right?
Yeah. And if you don't know how to relate to yourself, if you've never allowed yourself to be totally in tune and totally comfortable and 100% accepting of all of your emotions, of every single aspect of yourself, how are you ever going to be comfortable or accepting of a whole other person? And so that's what happens in our relationships when there's issues and stuff going on. So often our relationships become more about transactional love, where it's like, well, I can only be happy if you behave this way.
Right.
Well, then I can only be happy if you behave this way. And suddenly everyone's going to play by the other person's rules and no one's happy and no one knows how to communicate those rules in the first place. We're all like, guessing, and there's mind games going on, and we're mind reading and expecting other people to mind read us. We're making assumptions, and no one knows what the hell's going on. And then we wonder why most of the marriages, is it 50% to 60% of marriages end in divorce? And that's only the relationships that get to marriage. It's not even the relationships that don't even work out. And it's amazing to see.
Now, sorry, I got to jump in there when you start statistics, because, previously I can look back in history and go, everybody stayed married. Okay.
Oh, there's some good reasons why you would like a divorce.
We're ending them happy. You know what I mean? It's like, I sometimes wonder, why do people want to say they're married when it's like, I can feel the misery when I walk through the door. So isn't that like, maybe it was a backlash again to say, we know we don't want that.
Yep.
So we all went the other way. And now we're finding a balance now. Is that what you're talking about, the relationship revolution? Because it's like neither way has been the best way, because there's been no healing within each of us.
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing as this revolution of relationships. It's about consciously creating a relational space between two people, so that both people can have their needs met and both people can use this place almost like a playground of personal development, where it's not about being happy, it's about learning. It's about being open, about staying curious, about holding space for the other person. When one person's having their tantrum, that the other person can hold space for them. And if two people have a tantrum at the same time, it's not going to work. That someone's going to hold court. And then they teach. I always find as the women start to rise and lead in their relationships, it's unbelievable. Like, you don't have to drag your partner to therapy at all. Right. And these men, they start rising. And they sometimes will rise like this, even higher. And the woman's like, this is awesome. I'll rise higher. And he's like, game on. I'll rise higher. And so they start co-creating in this really beautiful way and creating this energy that just is, rising and rising between them. And it's inspiring. It's inspiring to watch relationships like that. They're the relationships, my partner and I were he cut his hand open and he was in emergency, and he got stitched up and he was coming out and he's all like, what's the word? Like, just out of it sort of thing. High up to his eyeballs.
Right.
And I was sitting on his bed as he was coming out of it, and the nurses were walking in and out the bedroom, and one nurse came in and she looked really embarrassed and she said, I'm so sorry. She goes, I've just got to, one of the other nurses told me I had to come in and speak to you and sort of look at you guys. And we were like, okay. And she said, how did you get this relationship? She goes, this is what I want. How do you get it? And it's not the first time or the last time it's ever happened to us. We've been in furniture stores and I've had the sales lady pull me aside and she's just gone, how did you get this? How did you get this relationship? This guy's crazy about you. How did you get that? Well, I didn't get it. I created it. Consciously.
So in the creating it consciously, that is part of creating the rules of the game. And do the women have to, for instance, because I'm assuming it's mostly women that are working with you, do they have to go to their partner to say, by the way, here are the rules? Are they just starting to change themselves and their rules? And in the process, this is what I just want everyone to get clear. In the process of them, again, working on themselves, their rules, they're experiencing, their partner starts to respond differently.
Well, you can't have the same relationship. It's like if you get married to one person, you enter a relationship with one person, you have an understanding of that person. You're like, yeah, I'm dating this person. But what if this person starts to change the rules of how they turn up every single day? What happens if this person's values start changing? What happens if this person, their confidence changes? What happens if their idea of their sensuality and sexuality changes? What happens, when their belief system changes? What happens when they're like lighting up and they're on fire and they're owning who they are? What happens when they start breaking the good girl rules and they become a whole person? What happens when they're so confident and that they then have that freedom to communicate all of their needs and all of their desires without feeling ashamed or guilty? And you can have a powerful woman stepping in, and men are just, most of the time, one client said it perfectly. She was, it's like I stepped into my queen, and then suddenly my king he's always been there. He was just waiting for me to step onto the throne next to him. And she goes, the minute I took my throne, he appeared. And she said, this was a couple who were literally about it. She came to me saying, I want to get divorced. It's over. I'm done. I want a divorce. And 6 sessions in, she's like, this is the best relationship. This is the best our relationship's ever been. And 4 years on, they're still like, they're traveling the world. They're renovating their house. I'm just like, oh my God, I don't even know who you are. Like, you're not the woman that came to me. It's incredible, just incredible. You can't have the same relationship. The relationship has to change because one of you has changed. Yeah.
Change yourself, change your world. Really.
Transform yourself, transform your world. It all starts internally.
Yeah. And what I find when you just talked about king and queen, and I was like, again, there is something going on here about us each stepping into the royal existence of who we are, because I think this third interview that now these words of king, the man being a king, but not a king that doesn't know who not the old structure of the king from the white supremacy rooted tree that is growing of our structures and systems. It's one that completely honors that the feminine and the masculine are intertwined and joined, and that this is who we are. We have the masculine and feminine in each of us, right?
Yeah.
So the relationship is here. It starts here. You're revolutionizing what the person is feeling about their selves, what their rules are, and then they get to experience how that shifts around them, and then they now have this beautiful relationship with someone else that they're experiencing life that's witnessing their journey. Is that kind of the gist of it?
Yeah. And it's just having, I watched a few years ago, my stepdad died, and I had watched my mother and him have this very turbulent relationship. And there were so many times that they threatened divorce, that they cancelled Christmas, dinners on the family as everyone was turning up at the front door. There was so much sort of crap that went on. And so many times when we were just like, just go choose happiness, just both of you, just get divorced and just go be happy. And anyway, they did, and they stayed together. And I was sitting on the bed, on my stepfather's bed as he was passing, and he'd been in and out of consciousness. And there was this one moment where my mum came and sat on the opposite side, and he opened his eyes up and he looked at her, and there was just this look of absolute pure love. It's nothing I've ever seen in a human existence kind of thing. And my mum was looking back, and I could just see this pure unconditional love. It was almost like their souls were looking at each other and saying, our contract's done. Like, I honor this contract. We've completed our contract, and our contract's done. And there's almost this full gratitude, and I can't even have the words for it. It was so insanely divine. And I just was watching this, and I was like, literally, a face sort of distance away, and just thinking, oh my God, I get it. And so many times when things happen in relationships, we run and we blame the other person, and we say, well, they wounded us. And it's not true. Most of our wounding we cause ourselves, or it's our fears, from our past that we've brought into our relationship and we're not dealing with. So when we start to use that relational space as this self-development playground, our partner, instead of being a pain in the ass, our partner becomes this gift, this, sort of consistent opportunity to grow. And, maybe you have one partner in your life, or maybe you have, a number of partners in your life. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we start showing up consciously in these relationships. And I think the more conscious we show up in a relationship, especially if you're dating, you'll start to see that each relationship you have becomes more aligned with who you are. It's so powerful once we start letting go of all of these different rules that we have about relationships, about marriage, about women, about men, and we actually start relating to each other as spiritual human beings with souls and with journeys. And we're all wounded. None of us are perfect, and we're all going to stuff up, and we're all going to disappoint each other. And if we can be in a place where we can enjoy, this is my stuff, that's not your stuff, I'm going to deal with this. Okay, that's triggering something off from my past. I need to go and take responsibility for that instead of throwing it back in your face and blaming you for it. We can have such completely different relationships, and so much less heartache, so much less pain, so much less abuse, emotional abuse that goes on, and so much less trauma our children have to witness. Because they do. I'm divorced, and I've seen my children witness things they shouldn't have to. We change so much, and my stepmother always taught me that, charity begins at home. And I was like, you should be kind to each other at home, but what she meant was so much more than that. A generosity of love is charity. That's where the word charity comes from. And so this generosity of love and kindness should be in our own homes. It should be with the most intimate people in our lives, and quite often it's not.
Yeah. No, you have this great face. I would see that in my parent. Is the game face when you're at work, right? Mm. And you're like, oh no, I could never say that to Verity, because I work with her. But I'll come home, Yeah. And then you come home and you just blah, 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 to the person that you supposedly love, or your family that you love and care about. And it's like that was always one of those, again, something that just never made sense to me in the world, why we would think that work is a much more important place to, be respectful.
Be a decent human being.
I was like, did I wake up in the wrong universe? That was kind of my thing. It's just like this thing, I think they got it all backwards. If family's supposed to be the most important, then why isn't? And I think that's one of the gifts we've already gotten in 2020. People have had time to spend with their family, reconnect and go, you know what, I actually like you. Or, you know what, I haven't seen you in 10 years. And you know what, I don't like you. You know what I mean? Like we have grown apart. Or I've got children. Oh my gosh. And you know what, they're a problem. And I thought the teacher should have been able to take care of them. Oh, but I can't even take care of them for one day. So,
Oh, that was my job? Wow.
Gee. And honestly, I don't think if people had that experience, white people wouldn't even be able to look at what's going on now with the racism and how we've been treated Indigenous people, because they were so in denial about life in general, right? So it's is it a married woman that generally finds you, or is it somebody that says, I really want a relationship, Verity, and I'm just attracting the wrong person? Who comes to you?
Sure, both do. It's amazing. Okay. So married women come to me who want to leave their relationships. I get married people that come to me who love their partners, but they just can't figure out how to work, and they will want to save their relationship, but they don't know how to. And I get single women that come to me and they're just like, I'm just not relationship material. Like, what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Why am I keep meeting the same person? And it's amazing at the moment. I've got this group of women that I'm working with together. And so in there, there's people who are, in their 50s, 60s during the course. There's young girls in their 20s, who are single. There's, divorced single mums. There's a whole mix. A woman who wants to get divorced, a couple that want to get back together. And it's amazing just to see them all having these conversations and being able to laugh at themselves. So we've just spent 3 weeks of them digging into their own sort of dirt and having to look at themselves and just go, oh my God, I've been doing what?
Right.
And they've all said the same thing. I get it. I get why I am where I'm at. And they know where to go, which is great. But it's just incredible to watch them sit back and just all laugh at themselves. And all of them carry such similar stories, all of them in playing the good girl rules. So it's incredible. It's just beautiful to watch and to witness. And I think that's part of my job is, we talk about these intimate relationships where we mirror each other, but it also happens in terms of, the teacher and the student, or the client and the coach, or whatever it is, or the therapist and their clients. You develop that relationship as well, and your job is to hold that space for them so they can see their truth, they can see their beauty, they can see their not so beautiful stuff and laugh at it and be okay with it, and to love all of themselves. And that's the kind of point where I do that with the women, and then the women go home and they do that to their husbands or their partners. And that's where the healing happens. Dragging a man to therapy, it doesn't work a lot of the time. Men aren't allowed to open up in the first place. Apparently, men aren't, allowed to have emotions. They're got to be these big boys, this kind of toxic masculinity that we're starting to understand. And so they're not going to go to a complete stranger and suddenly bare their souls. That to a woman that they've been with for a decent amount of time, who's seen them at the worst and seen them at the best, that's the person they're going to open up to. And if she rises and creates that space for him, and he rises, it's like you invite him to rise. And just the things that I see and the things that I witness, and I have women just like, how did this happen? My husband started to do this. I didn't even tell him to do that. He bought me flowers the other day. I didn't even ask him to buy flowers. What's going on? I wanted to do this. He's just renovated my home office for me and put all these beautiful quotes up on the wall. He didn't even believe in this stuff. What's going on? You said I didn't have to drag me to therapy. You're right. Well, what's going on? And I have my clients. I'm like, I told you what's going on. You know what's going on. And they're still they're in awe of their men. And when that shows to the men just want to rise more, and they're willing to heal more. And it was so beautiful last week. One of the women that I was working with, she said to me, because I don't deal with her husbands at all, and her partner turned around to her and he said, wow, this is therapy for me. And she was like, he's not even in therapy. But he's finding her transformation therapeutic for him. Yes. So it's magic.
But see, unless you have your own experience, it's like I, share with people about learning to trust their inner guidance. And I always say, if you don't have that experience in the 10 days, you don't know what it's like. You don't have the whole, it's only in the experience that we convince ourselves. And what came to me is when you said, when the women are coming to you to say, why is this? I can see or have experienced people that have had those sort of transformational moments, but they're on their own and they're without a community to come back to, or somebody that knows from, yes, this is natural. And then they start to question. It's almost like they open the door for their past rules to creep in, right? They're like, it's too good to be true, right? It really can't be. Like, it's got to fall apart. He can't be doing this all the time. And that's where the important part, I think, of having a mentor, a coach, a group, to hold them in that space and go, no, this is what your life is transforming to. This is your new norm.
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's really important too. What you're touching on is there's so much work in there as well. And even having got our belief systems and dissolving the old belief systems that aren't working for us anymore. Facing those kind of maladaptive behaviors that we adapted as children, but then become maladaptive as adults. There's so many beautiful things that, we get to work on and to play with, and that, we kind of use as building blocks. So as we start changing our rules, we have put other things in place to be able to cement and start building on top of those foundations. And when we do that, it's really hard to break the rules because you've got these solid foundations like already built there, supporting you, guiding you, nurturing you. And so many beautiful, like we were having this conversation, funny enough, just last night, and one lady said, how do I know that I'm going to keep playing by my rules? And when I explained it to her, she was like, yeah. She's like, I'm not letting my rules go. And I'm like, you won't be able to.
Right. Because that's beautiful. So, you'll know when you're not following your rules once you decide to make a set of new rules, right? But there's a process that's involved. So, people can reach out to you where?
So obviously they can find me on Facebook through Verity Mansfield, or through my website, veritymansfield.com. And there's a contact form up there if you have any questions. And also on our podcast, so there's a podcast called Good Girls Don't podcast, which kind of flows into all of those good girl rules that we've been fed and sort of breaking them apart. And being able to come together as women and have those conversations that we've been told that, good little girls don't have. There's quite a few ways you can stalk me.
Well, if you could maybe put that into the comments on the on our feed here afterwards, just because sometimes people don't read the original post, that maybe they'll find there too. That would be great, because this really is what it's all about. Is relationship with yourself, relationship with the person that you love and care about, your family, and the relationship that we're creating in the world. So from Canada to Perth, Australia, the west side of Australia, for those of you that don't even know where Australia is. Okay, now there you go. Perth is on the west side. Sydney is a 6-hour flight away?
Oh, no, Sydney's, I think, 3.5-hour flight.
3.5-hour flight. So it's not quite as big as Canada. Okay, because it's like 5-7 hours across the country here. But yes, so I'm really grateful that you are in the early hours of the morning on Sunday, June 21st, joining us here. And I look forward to hearing more about relationships being revolutionized.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure, Jacqueline, and I really love the opportunity to be able to share it with you.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on Global Party. We're all healing from the inside out. Have a fabulous day. Mwah!
Bye.